There's a couple different ways to use them. A lot of traders use them to try and trade in between, buy when it hits the lower band, sell when it hits the higher band. That's one way to use them.
Welcome back, traders and investors. We have tracked down Dave Landry, and he is a trader and founder at DaveLandry.com. Dave, we need to what do you think of all this mess here? We went down, we're right back up. Is everything okay, Dave? Are we just back on to new all-time highs?
I don't think so. I think, Joel, I think the damage has been done this time. A lot of times you'll have some of your biggest rallies ever occur in bear markets. Now, I'm not saying we're in a bear market, but my point is let's not get too excited just because we had a couple of big up days. If you follow some of the old Wall Street adages, very few of which are correct, by the way, some of them say that the market will often do what it has to do to cause the most pain to the most people. And I think this is probably a case of that now. It's kind of giving everybody, hey, it's all clear, let's jump right back in.
And it's not.
Right, exactly. If you go, I look at 2,000 or 3,000 stocks every day, and if you do that, you get a feel for what's really going on. And for the most part, most stocks are headed lower, and it looks like the damage has been done. Most of these sectors have been decimated, and on an individual issue basis, a lot of these stocks have already dropped about 50%, believe it or not.
So how do you play it? We made a high yesterday. I'm going to do this basis the S&P futures. Yesterday's high, 39.75. We closed out at 38 even, where we're trading right now. In the other time frame, as Fari likes to refer it, we went to 43.75. So are you leaning on the highs from yesterday here to determine? Are you going to short there and give it a little bit of room? Or because a lot of times, I just don't think we're going to go right back down. I think we could have, a day or two of consolidation. And how are you playing it, Dave?
Well, what I'm going to do is I've got a plethora of shorts setting up, so I'm going to look to reload on the short side, but I'm going to wait for entries on those, meaning that take out the prior day or two lows. So I actually wait for quite a bit of confirmation just in case it kind of fakes out one way or the other. And I think we're already overbought in the overall market right now. Now, one thing that I do preach, I think it's harder to get the overall market direction right than it is to get the direction right in individual issues. It doesn't mean that you don't ignore the overall market. You certainly want to pay attention to it, but then pay more attention to what's happening in individual issues and take things on a setup-by-setup basis. But I think we're headed lower. I think we could see, I can't disagree with you, we could see some more up moves in here, and then I think when it fails to materialize, or I should say if it fails to materialize to the upside, then those who rushed in might be looking to get back out.
Last week, were you able to pick any bottoms in anything or cover your shorts close to the bottom? I mean, had some frenzied trading activity on Tuesday and Wednesday. Were you able to catch any falling knives?
Well, I try not to catch any falling knives because you don't know that they're going to keep on dropping. That's a problem there. But what I did do was, because you don't know in markets, Joe, and you only know, you can only look out so far, and you don't know what's going to happen. So what I did do was I was able to take some partial profits, but that was in my trading plan to begin with. I didn't rush out and say, well, the market's down. Oh, it can't stop going down. I better rush out and take some partial profits. I had that in a trading plan to begin with. And then luckily, on at least one position, we got stopped out at a profit when it retraced back up. So take partial profits and use stops because you don't know for sure exactly where a market is headed.
And what are your? Are you a moving average guy? Are you double tops, double bottoms, pattern trader? What candlesticks? What indicators do you like?
Well, I don't use candles, and we can get into that in more details if you would like. But I just use plain old Western bar charts. Most of the time, I just use a blank bar chart, and I try to draw a big arrow in the direction of which way I think that the trend is headed. Occasionally, I will use some moving averages, and I use what I call what I've dubbed the bow tie moving averages. And if you have a bow tie off of all-time highs, usually that could be a significant sell signal. Now, not every one will turn into the mother of all tops, but every major top will have the signal, so it pays to pay attention. And we just had that pattern off of, like you mentioned a second ago, a double top. I do pay attention to classical technical analysis, but I look for some sort of setup within the bigger picture pattern. So we had a double top, and we had a bow tie off the double top. So that could be a fairly significant signal. Obviously, we won't know till after the fact whether or not it was the major top, but we have stops in place just in case it's not.
And explain the bow tie again?
The bow tie, you're looking for a crossover of three moving averages, a 10 simple, a 20 exponential, and a 30 exponential moving average. And when they come together and cross over a fairly short period of time, it gives the appearance, it sort of looks like a bow tie, meaning that they come in real tight, make a bit of a fulcrum point, then they spread right out again. And usually when that occurs after all-time highs or all-time lows, it can often signal a major top or major bottom in markets. If you look at like a weekly S&P going back for the last 20, 30 years, you'll see some pretty impressive bull and bear markets that was signaled by that particular signal.
Did you try and trade any of the Ebola stocks?
Well, other than we're long one, CTLT, and it's a biotech stock, and I'm not sure whether or not it has anything with Ebola related to it. I just buy stocks that look like they're set up and look poised to go higher. And by accident, sometimes we'll get into some of those stocks. So I'm not sure whether that's an Ebola stock or not, but it is a biotech, and maybe it's getting a pop because of Ebola. And that's an interesting point you bring up there, Joel, about the biotech stocks. That's the only area that's looking pretty good in here. It actually made new highs yesterday. So I'm not going to be a complete bear if they start making new highs, and I might start looking to buy some more biotechs.
Okay. Any other sectors that you thought got beat up a little bit more than they should have on the decline?
Well, gold's been scraping bottom forever, but those stocks, I think it's a little too dangerous just yet to start trying to bottom fish in the gold stocks. Gold itself is kind of bouncing off its lows, but the problem with that is sometimes it can be more of a process than an event. So if I had to pick one sector, that'll probably be the first one I start looking at. Not that I want to bottom fish, but I think that those stocks have been beaten up the most, and they dropped for a long time, long before we saw this slide. So that could be one of the first sectors to bottom out. Other than that, I'm really not seeing anything to get too excited about just yet, other than the aforementioned biotech stocks.
Okay, and what about some of these stocks that came out with good earnings today? Like, let's use just Boeing as an example here. Just crazy pre-market action. They took it up, they took it down. Seems, what's your general feeling on the earnings season so far? It seems like they've been hitting some stocks that have had some good numbers.
Well, I ignore all news, and as I think you kind of alluded to there, it's the reaction to the news and not the news in and of itself. So you had good earnings, you would think the stocks would go up. Well, evidently they wanted better earnings than what they got, and the stocks are going down. So I try to avoid that game. Now, if it occurs within a setup, sometimes I could use it to my advantage. Sometimes you get like a false move on that earnings, and then the real move occurs afterwards. So if I don't trade news, but I think if you were to trade news, you'd probably be better off fading the news as opposed to trading it. Just like you pointed out, these stocks are going down in spite of good earnings.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts here for traders? In today's session, little bit red here. Haven't quite got to yesterday's high. What are you looking for in today's session? Is perhaps a sign that we're going right back down?
Well, we could see a little stalling action in the overall market, but again, it's more difficult to predict the overall market right now. If you look at the spiders, we already had a tiny little opening gap reversal, so that might be a good time for a day trader to fire off a short for an opening gap reversal, but that's not where the bread and butter is. The bread and butter is in the longer-term move. So the main thing to do now is just follow your plan. Make sure you have a plan to begin with, and just follow that plan. If you get stopped out, you get stopped out, but make sure you wait for entries on new positions and take partial profits along the way. One last point, as I pointed out in today's column, there's a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund that went to cash recently, and they didn't do it because they had some sort of secret sauce. They did it because they got stopped out. So just follow your plan and honor your stops, and I think you'll do just fine.
And check out DaveLandry.com for Dave's commentary on the markets. Dave, thanks a lot. We'll let you get to the screen there, and we'll check in with you again soon.
Thank you, Joel. I enjoyed being back.